This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Robert, welcome to Tech Talk.
Hi, Frank. Thanks so much for having me.
Speed, complexity, the challenges and the opportunities represented by IoT and some of the incredible technologies that are obviously disrupting just about every vertical. In fact, I would argue that it's no longer disruption vertically, it's disruption horizontally. What industry isn't being done? We've got to get more efficient at what we do. We've got to get better at, quote unquote, our own game. And I guess the circle I'm going around in is to come back to, let's talk a little bit about in that environment with the kind of situation, both in terms of the competitive marketplace and the opportunities represented by new technology, what do you perceive the biggest roadblock to, say, a project success?
Well, I think there's a number of areas that can definitely point to like roadblocks for a project success. But over the years, I believe most of them tend to point back to communication. Of course, even within communication, there are many perspectives or lenses, if you will, that you can view the various gaps that projects have in an experience. But I think one that I'd like to talk about as a specific example is just executive alignment. So I'll approach this from two perspectives. So first, really at a strategic level, I've seen management struggle to understand how the various projects they have in play really sort of relate to each other. Do they overlap in delivering similar capabilities? Do they conflict with each other? I mean, how do the projects work together and support and uplift an overall program, or more importantly, the overall mission for that company? And so I think while items like dashboards can be effective, at servicing information, sometimes they don't go deep enough in really providing that context of the information. It's just not there. There's not enough detail to surround it or to be able to dive deep and reveal the full story. Another way of looking at this is at a more tactical level, if you will, sort of at the team level. And I think an area within communication at that level is where the team, fails to really comprehend the vision or the overall, if they call it like concept of operations, as it's typically referred to in the federal market. Too often I've been involved in projects where folks building a solution don't fully understand why it's important and how it connects with the greater mission of their company or their organization. I think it's so important to have a clear vision that goes beyond just having a paragraph in a document that really helps the team to truly understand how the project will benefit everyone, as they typically will have a common goal that needs to be understood and have that shared understanding. Ultimately, I think this facilitates greater generation of ideas and solutions to the problems that the team can solve. So with that, I guess the question that needs to be answered is, well, how can you effectively tell the story at both at sort of this executive management level and also down at the team level? And what we found over the years is that through storytelling, by creating prototypes, infographics, other types of key visual communication, for us, we've seen as being the most effective in being able to really help generate more effective communication that is more universally understood. And again, by using prototypes and infographics and that type of visual communication, it's experiential. So we found that to also be more effective in generating that shared understanding as well as retention of information.
Well, I think anymore, I would describe what you guys are doing as almost pragmatic futurist, and going into a situation where you've got proof of concept, and certainly you've got the experience and the know-how and understand where things are today, but you also you're in that zone, so you know where it's going and what's next. A lot of times business doesn't come at it from that perspective. They're legacy type situations. They're overwhelmed by change, frustrated by trying to figure out what kind of decision to make, looking at competition that's going into the cloud and not investing in the way they have in the past, and just on and on and on. Clearly, there's a significant disconnect between business and IT groups. How do you guys overcome that, and what do you do to address it?
Well, again, I think this really points to communication. It's another challenge, if you will. And I think the fact is that, IT and business folks really speak two different languages. We found that one of the most challenging aspects of any project is getting all the team members and the stakeholders to, really, quote unquote, speak the same language, if you will. Mm-hmm. As an example, as a technical or data architect, he or she is going to view the project through this lens of data types and object models and in various areas of very specific to specifications. But when they're speaking with an executive, the executive really wants to understand less about the data types and the types of models and so forth, but they're really interested in what does this mean to me? What does this mean to driving business value? How is this going to impact our customers? Will it accelerate sales? All in all, how does this translate? So I think, not only do folks need to consider each other's perspectives, if you will, put yourself in their shoes, so to speak, but they need a common language to communicate. And again, I go back to the idea of using visual communication because it's universal. And most of the time when we're brought into organizations, it's because, there is that communication barrier between the business and IT groups, and they need, if you will, for us to work as that Rosetta Stone or to be that bridge to help the business and IT groups really understand each other, communicate more effectively, and eliminate that barrier. So for us, where we start to create that common language is by using prototypes, by using infographics and other visual communication devices that really help everyone communicate and create that shared understanding between the business and IT stakeholders.
That's brilliant. I mean, the Eastern philosophers say that the solution is always, what the solution is. It's the implementation that becomes the real challenge and how you get it implemented. And certainly the struggle that I see in a lot of consulting situations is the one that I was describing before, where there's that communication and just a flat misconnect. And I can see the kinds of things that you're talking about not being threatening, allowing me to embrace it and get a better understanding because you're talking to me in a language that I can understand. How good is that? I think most first-generation entrepreneurs and top executives of small to medium-sized companies that are not in technology but have to deal with technology every day get exactly what you're saying and see the benefit of it. Let's drift in a little bit into Agile because obviously that's popular. Yet I know more companies that are struggling with it than anybody that's really successfully adopted. What's the problem? Why?
Well, I'll tell you, I think from my experience, even though Agile's been around for years, many organizations that are looking to become Agile, they still see it as this shiny new object that they can take advantage of. And, the truth is Agile is not a widget that you can just use and instantly have success. For a company to become Agile, it's really a mindset. It's a way of thinking first and foremost, followed by a different way of doing, if you will. Most companies that I've talked to that are trying to become Agile just aren't prepared to fully embrace this. And it's really like, a culture shift, if you will, or any type of large transformation or change management, if you want to even label it that way. And as we all know, it's very difficult and it takes time. But again, from the top down, it's something that everyone has to embrace and realize that it's not, again, something that you can just, pull out of the box and say, hey, we're going to install this new widget, and all of a sudden it's going to overnight produce great results. So as a result, what's happened is oftentimes Agile companies will attempt it, and it's implemented in sort of a half-baked way, if you will. And this oftentimes leads to bad experiences and additional project challenges, and then Agile gets a bad rap. Now, while I'm not saying that Agile is the silver bullet, I mean, there's an awful lot of tremendous benefits to be realized. But again, I think it's because folks have a myopic view of what it is and how it needs to be implemented. With that being said, I think there's also this misperception among many management executives. They think Agile just means faster and cheaper. And the reality is that Agile still takes time, and it's still an investment. The strength is in its transparency and receipt of working code early in the life cycle, and also the fact that you get that value immediately. That's another key aspect of Agile that makes it so powerful and why it's growing in popularity. But when I talk about transparency, this is really achieved through those constant check-ins, those periodic check-ins that you have, through your demo and retrospectives that happen at the end of each sprint. And so what this does is this allows the team to have that visibility into what's happening. And also, there's great measurement tools such as burn down charts and so forth that allow you to really be able to see your velocity and how is the team really progressing, and are we on track, and do we have to make any adjustments along the way. So by being able to really focus your team on, if you will, sort of segmenting or chunking their work into a time box fashion, And also having that visibility of being able to see that progress, enabling the business owner, as they call it in Agile, the product owner, to have that visibility and also be able to constantly groom, they call it, the backlog, where what that simply means is being able to prioritize what they want to work on first and foremost. You can see why Agile has been greatly beneficial and why it's been growing in popularity. But again, I think it really comes back to that folks have to understand that it's a lot more than just a new widget. It's truly a culture shift and a mindset, and folks have to be willing to embrace it and truly follow sort of those Agile principles from the outset. Again, it's not a methodology or a tried and true set of like rigid, you must do this in order to execute that, but it really is a different sort of guiding. You have to think of it more of as with that mindset of what the guiding principles are that you have to follow in order to really sort of realize those benefits and see some of that success that Agile can bring to your organization.
Take a critical piece of it, and let's focus a little bit deeper into it. And where I'm going here is in design. I mean, design's always been important, but obviously, why is design even more important now that Agile's becoming so mainstream?
Well, I think design is crucial, and from our standpoint, being a design and definition firm, we're very close to this and are very passionate about believing that design, from our perspective, it really helps ensure that what is being built, what IT has been tasked to do, that they're actually building the quote-unquote right product or service. And what I mean by right is that design is really helps promote in terms of what is being created is being both useful as well as being usable, all right? So the reason why design is so crucial is it's really the craft around making sure that what is being built is going to be something that's going to truly meet the needs, not only of the business, but also, as importantly, if not more importantly, for the end consumer of that particular product or service. So again, Agile has tremendous benefits. And while it does give you that greater transparency, those constant check-ins and so forth, and then being able to, if you will, sort of pivot quickly and change direction if you need to, if you're going down the wrong path, you still run a risk, at least from what I've seen, with a lot of companies looking at Agile of, hey, let's just start building. Before we collectively know what's the big picture of what are we going to build, and most importantly, why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. And design really helps answer those vital questions right from the start. And again, this is something that we believe is so hugely important. It doesn't mean that design has to be time-consuming, super expensive, and slow things down. But truly, design is important, and it needs to be incorporated with that Agile mindset and becoming Agile. And another thing I want to point out is that the design community has worked really hard to evolve our techniques and tools to make sure that we're working in a very lean or Agile environment. This is important for us, and this is something where, as designers, we definitely want to still be at the table and believe that our value is still paramount in being able to help be very constructive and proactive and having a positive impact on helping businesses to answer those key business problems and challenges.
One last point, and I think most of our listeners probably get a grip and already understand it, but go a little deeper in the whole concept of prototyping and really even touch upon the concept of why it's beneficial, especially rapid prototyping.
Well, for us, prototyping has been core to what we do from day one when we started in 2005. And what we found over the years is when you look at what I was mentioning before about visual communication and the importance of it and it being so effective, both in terms of being able to promote greater understanding, being able to retain that information more readily and for a longer term. And prototypes, if you will, they sort of represent the ultimate in bringing everything together because not only is it visual communication, but it's also experiential. So not only are you seeing it, but you can also interact with the prototype. And as a result of that, what we found over the years is that prototypes are really the most effective and efficient way to communicate your product or service. They bring everything to life so you can truly experience the solution before it's even built. And unlike years ago when prototypes were time-consuming and costly to build, today, with the latest modern technologies that we have, you can build fully interactive prototypes that can be created without writing a single line of code and can also be built by a very small team. So you don't have to tie up your development team, so to speak, if you want to be able to explore a particular service or a want to create that prototype very quickly and cost effectively. So with that, you still get all of the benefits you would get from a traditional coded prototype, but in a fraction of the time at a fraction of the cost. Therefore, you can see why we're great advocates of the prototyping process. Sure. And how it really helps everybody, generate that shared understanding, and it helps you to figure out what you're going to build before it's built in making that investment. It has tremendous benefits all across the board, from strategy all the way to delivery.
Absolutely. I can't imagine the way you're describing it. It can't be any more efficient and a lot more confidence and security in making a bigger investment in something that you already know and have seen and, as you point out, experienced. One of the things that I think, Robert, when it really gets down to it, because on Tech Talk we talk to a lot of different players, both vertically and horizontally, as far as the industry and even the kinds of companies. And when it gets down to the ever-changing, ever-evolving technology that we all talk about, what it really kind of boils down to is trust. And I think the bottom line, Robert, is that's the reputation that I think you guys have gotten. I think you've earned it, and that's the fact that you're a trusted partner. And when people start trekking into this kind of malaise and don't really know where they're going, it's not only a case of having a good resource, but having a good resource that you can really have confidence in and trust. And you guys do a great job in doing that. So really, thank you so much for taking time out of what I know has got to be a busy schedule to join us for a couple of minutes today on Tech Talk.
Thanks again, Frank. It was my pleasure to be here. Really appreciate being a part of your program. To learn more, please visit our website at www.onespring.net or reach out to me directly at robert@onespring.net.